In this video we're going to go over how to study chromatic harmony. I've personally found from a few years of teaching that people tend to try to get too far ahead of themselves in this category, and they don't study methodically and in total depth the traits of specific time periods in history all the way up to modern times. And what you'll end up with is a YouTube guitar player or somebody trying to explain this kind of harmony to you and giving it to you completely wrong. And I'll show you why in a second when we go over this example. And as a result, you fail to get into the heads of these composers because you don't really know what traits to look for or what you're looking at in general. You've just been explained to by somebody who, by people who just riff out and, call everything modal interchange or whatever and just use slash chords. When composers like Tchaikovsky, in this example we're going to go over, are not thinking alike in modal interchange. So let's listen first. And ironically, I am a guitar player. So this is the part we're going to decipher. So I'm going to attempt to play this, at at least a mild tempo. What's cool is this is Tchaikovsky's actual transcription of his own piece. So what we're going to do is decipher this first. We have a B flat, just a B flat chord, an E flat chord, to a B flat chord, to a C major over that B flat. Okay, so this is where the confusion starts. The guitar player in you wants to say he's using modal interchange, the chord from Lydian. But that's not how he's thinking, okay? I'm going to show you what's going on here. You have that C major, and then that A half diminished, which resolves to the B flat. So over this, we'll just consider this B flat a pedal point instead. So what we don't want to do is call this first part B major, B Lydian, back to B major. We don't want to do that because that's not how Tchaikovsky's thinking. In fact, it will make you fail to see the functionality in which he's thinking. So this C major is actually the 5 of 5, meaning a simple secondary functioning chord that you will find in chromatic harmony, which I have a course on in the link in the description, But he doesn't go from that C to the F dominant, he goes to that half diminished. So let's take a look at something though. This is where knowing the traits of the time periods come really handy. So he's going from this C to the half diminished in chromatic movement and not to the dominant. But look at something really closely. Let's take the half diminished shape. Now it's one note away from the dominant ninth, which would resolve to the B flat. Now let's use a dominant ninth in place. You notice how it sounds almost exactly the same? Here's the half diminished. Here's the dominant ninth. So these two chords, the half diminished and the dominant ninth, kind of are almost the same chord. They're very, very similar by one note, and they both resolve nicely to that B flat, which he does. So he's kind of tonicizing a chord that's very similar. There's the dominant ninth. There's the half diminished. So this is knowing the time period. This is probably a move you will not find in the Bach era, for instance. So starting over. So here we have the 5 of 4. Now wait here. We have let's consider this all purely chordal. So that'd be C minor, E flat, followed by the 5 of 5 in dominant ninth shape. It doesn't matter what kind of dominant chord you use, it'll always go nicely to that 5. And actually, let me go backwards because I did that too fast. So this is the 5 of 4, which is a basic chromatic harmony move. And I have a course on this if you don't know how to do this kind of stuff. The types of tonicizing chords, which are important to know because it's the difference between saying this is borrowing chords from Lydian or this is using secondary functioning chords. So I put decipher and memorize. So I want to memorize that one move. So I'll just move it around the circle of fifths or something just to make sure I can do it and figure it out very quickly. Do it really slow. and the next would be C. We want to have access to this harmonic move no matter what key we're in. It doesn't have to be in his specific order like this, just this part right here. And also the ability to move something exactly the same around to different keys with ease is a very, very, very recommended thing to do every time you learn a new move, because you're increasing your harmonic vocabulary. And I'm probably doing this too fast. Actually do it slower than I'm doing, like this. Really slow. Think about the chords each time you're doing it, what they are. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'll do one more key. Naturally it'd be A major if you're going around the circle of fifths. And doing it, voicing it exactly the same. And I'm going to go ahead and stop there. You just naturally go around the circle of fifths until you end up back at B flat. Now your study of this move does not stop here. Now you try to use it. So I'll improvise on it and just make a little bit of a variation. Here's our half diminished. C to the half diminished, A half diminished. And I might even, let's do something like answer it with something exactly like his. Same move. So I'm integrating this, and I'll show you what I did in a second, but I had a starting. And I answered it with this. This move is now part of my harmonic vocabulary. So when I answered this, I used the same thing he did, the 5 of 4, but I went to the minor borrowed 4 instead. Like this. Which would be the minor borrowed 4. To the 1 and second inversion. Now to the C, to the half diminished. Again, using that same move. Integrating it in a different way than he did in his piece here. Now to top it off, I might try other tonicizing type chords, like the diminished 7th chord, which would resolve naturally to the B if you know chromatic harmony. So if you take that C major, for instance, and go to the fully diminished 7th, it will still work. And interestingly enough, why will this still work? If you take a dominant flat 9, it still resolves to the B flat if you know your chromatic harmony. So it's very similar with the fully diminished 7th. So it's very similar to going to the dominant flat 9 chord. Just like the half diminished was similar to the dominant 9th chord. Here's what we had originally. Now let's replace it with that fully diminished 7th. Now this would also be another trait of this time period, the same chord. And actually would be very Tchaikovsky-like, ironically. So now I could use both the A half diminished and the A fully diminished to go to that B flat from that C over the pedal point. So basically I've given myself a new harmonic move that I can use with stuff I already know. I could do something like that. Something like that, which I'm not going to explain, but I used that one move we were studying and moved around all different keys and integrated it with moves I already know. I did know this move actually, but I'm showing you how to start studying music of this nature. So when you're studying something, don't just look at something, okay, I know it, and then leave. Actually use it and integrate it, memorize it in all different keys, and practice combining it with moves you already know. That's the only way your harmonic vocabulary builds, especially with chromatic harmony. and this will actually in turn help you with the chromatic modulation. Now at first you may need somebody to actually point certain things out to you, like I did with this move from the similarity between the half diminished and the dominant ninth, and why they're almost the same chord. You may need somebody to point that out at first when somebody's getting a secondary dominant and then go into a chord like that. So remember, we're not dealing in Lydian. That's the wrong way to look at this. Get in the composer's head, know the time period. But if you go historically, starting from like Bach and then all the way through to modern times and really, really dig in, you're going to find that no style of music will confuse you at that point. And by doing so also will help you to know when should I use functional kind of thinking and when should I switch to modal type thinking. Polychord thinking, chordal thinking, etc., etc. You can actually build up to that to where you know when to switch really quickly and easily. The type of analysis that will best describe the situation. So if I use this and use modal interchange, it would be very confusing. But if you look at it from a functional point of view, it's not so confusing anymore when somebody explains to you the similarity between the dominant ninth and the half diminished, in which we expanded upon, which actually we didn't expand upon. I already knew this was possible, but the dominant flat nine is similar to the fully diminished seventh chord that's up a major third from that chord. Remember this, everything in music is cumulative, so spend a lot of time on one certain topic. Go really, really slow, and I guarantee if you do that in a historic kind of manner and just look at everything and know the time period traits and all that, you'll reach a point to where no matter what type of music you're looking at, it's not going to be very confusing.